The morning sky above Seoul turned dark without warning. People stopped walking on the streets and looked up. Cars pulled over. Children pointed from school windows. A massive shadow covered the entire city like a giant cloud, but there were no clouds in the sky. Captain Juan was drinking coffee in his office at the Unified Defense Command when every alarm in the building started screaming. Red lights flashed on every wall. His assistant ran into the room without knocking. "Sir, you need to see this right now," she said, her voice shaking. Juan followed her to the main control room. Dozens of people sat at computers, all talking at once. On the biggest screen in front of them was something that made Juan drop his coffee cup. A ship hung in the sky above Earth. But this was not like any ship humans had ever built. It was over a kilometer long, shaped like a twisted spear, and made of metal that seemed to shift colors in the sunlight. "How long has it been there?" Juan asked. "It appeared 3 minutes ago," said Commander Jiho, walking up to him. "No warning, no sound. It just showed up." "Where did it come from?" "Space. But, sir, our sensors show it came from nowhere. 1 second empty space. The next second, this thing was there." Juan stared at the screen. He had been preparing for this day his whole life, but now that it was here, he felt like a child again. Every person on Earth knew this day might come. The old stories, the artifacts they had found buried in the ground, the ancient writings on cave walls, they all told of visitors who had come to Earth long ago. Dr. Nari burst into the control room, still wearing her dirt-covered clothes from the dig site. She was the best person on Earth at understanding the old alien technology they kept finding. Her black hair was messy and her glasses were crooked, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "It's them," she said, breathing hard. "It's really them. The Veltar have come back." "How do you know?" Juan asked. "The ship design matches the drawings we found in the Egyptian ruins. And look at this." She held up a small metal device that glowed with soft blue light. "Every piece of their old technology we found is lighting up. They're all responding to that ship." On the screen, the alien ship began to move. It turned, slowly, like a whale in the ocean, until its pointed front faced down toward Earth. Then lights began flashing along its sides in patterns. "They're trying to talk to us," said Jiho. "Can we understand them?" Juan asked. Dr. Nari was already working at a computer. "Give me a few minutes. We've been studying their language for 20 years. The patterns of light kept flashing. Around the world, every government was watching. Every military base was on high alert. But Juan knew that if these aliens wanted to hurt Earth, they could have done it already. That ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. "Got it," Dr. Nari said suddenly. "It's a formal message. Very polite. They're saying, 'Greetings to the inhabitants of Cultivation Site. 7 Alpha, we are the Veltar, your creators and guardians. We have returned to inspect our work and reclaim what is ours. Prepare for evaluation.'" The room went quiet. Juan felt his stomach drop. "Creators?" Jiho asked. "What do they mean, creators?" Dr. Nari looked pale. "Based on what we've learned from the artifacts, I think they made us. 30,000 years ago, they came to Earth and changed early humans. They gave us bigger brains, better bodies, longer lives. Then they left. And now they're back," Juan said. "To reclaim what's theirs," Dr. Nari added quietly. Juan looked around the room at all the worried faces. These were good people, smart people, brave people. They had spent their lives protecting Earth and making it better. Now some aliens were saying they owned everything. "Sir," said a young man at one of the computers, "more ships are coming." On the screen, they could see smaller shapes leaving. The big ship. 12 smaller vessels, each one still larger than the biggest human spaceship. They moved toward Earth like falling stars. "Where are they going?" Juan asked. "All the major cities," the young man replied. "New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, Cairo. They're spreading out across the planet." Juan took a deep breath. He had trained for this moment. But training was different from the real thing. The fate of every human on Earth might depend on what happened. "In the next few hours, get me President Yoon on the secure line," he said, "and contact all the other defense commanders around the world. We need to coordinate our response." "What kind of response?" Jiho asked. "Sir, those ships could destroy every city on Earth if they wanted to." "Maybe," Juan said. "But they haven't. They're talking to us instead of shooting. That means they want something from us, not just to wipe us out. Dr. Nari was still staring at her glowing artifacts. Captain, there's something else. These devices aren't just responding to their ship. They're also responding to our technology. What do you mean? Look around. Every computer in this room uses technology we learned from studying their old artifacts. Our spacecraft, our weapons, our medical equipment. It's all based on things they left behind 30,000 years ago. Juan suddenly understood. They're not just coming back to a primitive world. They're coming back to a world that built itself using their own technology. Exactly. And sir, I don't think they're expecting that. One of the smaller alien ships was getting closer to Seoul. Through the windows, they could see it slowing down as it approached the city. It was beautiful in a frightening way, covered in the same color-changing metal as the mothership. Sir, called out the communications officer. We're getting another message. This one is directed specifically at us, at this building. What does it say? We will arrive at your primary military facility in 1 hour. Prepare your leaders for inspection. Do not resist. Compliance will be rewarded. Juan felt anger rising in his chest. He had spent 30 years in the military, protecting people and fighting for freedom. Now these aliens were treating Earth like they owned it. Send a message back, he said. Sir, send them a message. Tell them that Earth welcomes peaceful visitors, but we are not servants waiting for inspection. Tell them our leaders will meet with them as equals, nothing more and nothing less. Dr. Nari looked worried. Captain, maybe we should be more careful. We don't know what they're capable of. We know exactly what they're capable of, Juan said, pointing at all the technology around them. We've been studying their capabilities for decades, and we've been improving on them. He walked over to the big screen and stared at the approaching alien ship. Somewhere on that vessel were beings who thought they owned Earth and everything on it. They were about to learn that humans were not the same creatures they had left behind 30,000 years ago. Get me Taiho from the engineering department, Juan said. If we're going to meet these aliens, I want them to see what we've done with their gifts. Outside, the alien ship continued its descent toward Seoul. In 1 hour, 2 species would meet face to face for the first time in 30 millennia. One thought they were coming home to reclaim their property. The other was about to show them how wrong they were. The alien ship landed in the wide plaza outside the Unified Defense Command building. It touched down without making a sound, which seemed impossible for something so large. The metal landing legs extended smoothly, and the whole ship settled onto the ground, like it weighed nothing at all. Dr. Nari stood with Captain Juan and 5 other humans, waiting. She carried a bag full of alien artifacts that her team had been studying for years. Next to her stood Taiho, a young engineer who looked calm despite the situation. His specialty was taking old alien technology and making it work better. Remember, Juan said quietly, we're not begging for anything. We're meeting them as equals. A door opened in the side of the alien ship, but no ramp came down. Instead, 3 figures simply floated out and drifted to the ground. Dr. Nari had seen pictures of the Veltar in ancient cave paintings, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall, almost 3 meters high, with long arms and legs. Their skin was pale blue and seemed to shine slightly. They had large eyes that were completely black, and when they moved, it was with a strange grace, like they were swimming through air instead of walking. The one in front wore robes that changed color like the ship's metal. When he spoke, the words came not from his mouth, but from a small device on his chest. I am Prime Cultivator Velkan, the device said in perfect Korean. I speak for the Veltar Empire. You will identify your leaders so that we may begin the inspection process. Dr. Nari stepped forward. She had practiced this moment in her mind 1,000 times. Welcome to Earth, she said in the Veltar language. I am Dr. Nari, head of Xenoarchaeological Studies. This is Captain Juan, commander of Earth's Defense Forces. The 3 aliens stopped moving. Their black eyes stared at Dr. Nari for a long moment. You speak our language, Velkan said, and for the first time there was surprise in his voice. We learned it from the artifacts you left behind, Dr. Nari replied, still speaking in Veltar. We have been studying your culture for many decades. Impossible, said one of the other aliens. The cultivation subjects on this world should barely have developed agriculture. How do you possess our technology? Taeho smiled and pulled out a small device from his pocket. It looked like one of the alien artifacts, but cleaner and smaller. When he activated it, it projected a hologram into the air between them. We found pieces of your technology buried all over our planet, Taeho said. We studied them, learned how they worked, and improved them. The hologram showed the inside of the device, with parts moving and energy flowing. But Dr. Nari could see that the design was different from the original Veltar artifacts. Humans had made it better. Improved? Velkan asked. Show me. Taeho held up an old Veltar artifact and his improved version side by side. Both were small gravity manipulators, devices that could make objects float. The old one lifted a small stone 2 meters into the air. Taeho's version lifted a piece of metal 3 times as heavy and held it perfectly still. We increased the efficiency by 300%, Taeho explained, and reduced the power consumption by half. The 3 aliens looked at each other. Dr. Nari could not read their expressions, but their body language suggested confusion. This is not possible, the second alien said. Cultivation subjects do not improve on Veltar designs. They use what they are given. Maybe that's true on other worlds, Captain Juan said, but humans have always been good at making things better. Velkan turned to look at the city around them. Seoul stretched out in all directions, full of tall buildings and flying vehicles. Many of the technologies visible used principles learned from Veltar artifacts, but everything had been changed and improved. How many humans live on this world? Velkan asked. 12 billion, Dr. Nari answered. 12 billion. The alien's device seemed to struggle with the translation. Our records indicate this world should support no more than 10 million subjects at the cultivation level you were left at. We passed 10 million about 29,000 years ago, Juan said. We've learned to grow more food, build better cities, and heal more diseases. A new sound filled the air. Everyone looked up to see a human spaceship approaching. It was the Indomitable, Earth's most advanced vessel. Commander Jiho was bringing it in to land near the alien ship. The Indomitable was smaller than the Veltar ship, but it moved with incredible precision. Its hull was covered with armor that shifted color to match the sky, and weapon ports that hummed with contained energy. When it landed, it did so with complete silence, just like the alien ship. Your species has achieved spaceflight, Velkan said. It was not a question. 50 years ago, Jiho said as he walked over to join them. We have colonies on 3 star systems now. 3 star systems? Mars, Europa, and Titan in our own system, Jiho continued, plus New Sol in the Alpha Centauri system, New Busan in the Wolf 359 system, and New Daegu in the Barnard Star system. Dr. Nari watched the aliens carefully. Velkan's skin was changing color, cycling through different shades of blue and purple. She had read that this meant extreme emotional distress in Veltar body language. You have established interstellar colonies, Velkan said slowly. 6 of them, Taeho added, all using improved versions of your faster-than-light technology. Our technology does not permit interstellar colonization at your supposed development level. It does now, Taeho said cheerfully. We figured out how to make your hyperspace drives 90% more efficient. Want to see? Before Velkan could answer, Taeho was walking toward the Indomitable. The aliens followed along with the human delegation. Inside the ship, everything was clean and new, but Dr. Nari could see the underlying Veltar design principles in every system. This is our hyperspace engine, Taeho said, leading them to a room filled with humming machinery. Based on your original design. But we added some improvements. He pointed to a crystalline structure in the center of the room. It glowed with soft white light and seemed to bend space around itself. The original Veltar design used brute force to break through hyperspace barriers, Taeho explained. We learned to slide through them instead. Much more elegant. Velkan approached the engine carefully. This is not how hyperspace technology functions. It is now, Taeho said. We can travel between star systems in weeks instead of months. The second alien, who had identified himself as Engineer Kethmar, was examining the engine closely. "The theoretical principles are sound," he said quietly, "but the execution should be beyond their capabilities." "A lot of things should be beyond our capabilities," Dr. Nari said. "But we've never been very good at accepting limitations." They spent the next hour touring the ship. The aliens saw human improvements to every system they had originally designed. Navigation was faster and more accurate. Life support was more efficient and reliable. Weapons were more powerful and precise. "How many ships like this do you have?" Velkan asked. 200 in active service," Jiho answered. "Another 50 under construction." "And these are your most advanced vessels?" "Actually, this is middle grade," Jiho said. "We have 12 ships of the Dreadnought class that are much more powerful. And we're working on something new that we call Project Infinity." Velkan was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, smaller. "According to our cultivation protocols, this world should still be in the agricultural development phase. Your species should be grateful for the gifts we provided and ready to serve the Empire as intended." Dr. Nari felt a flash of anger. "Serve the Empire? We were never told we were supposed to serve anyone?" "All cultivation subjects serve the Empire. That is the purpose of cultivation." "Maybe that's how it works on other worlds," Captain Juan said. "But Earth makes its own choices." Velkan looked around at the advanced human technology surrounding him. "This is not how cultivation is supposed to proceed." "Then maybe," Taiho said with a smile, "your cultivation process isn't as good as you thought it was." The alien's skin shifted to a deep purple color. Dr. Nari realized they had just challenged everything the Veltar believed about themselves and their empire. Outside, more alien ships were landing in cities around the world. Each one was finding the same thing: humans who had taken the gifts they were given and built something completely unexpected. The inspection was not going the way the Veltar had planned. 3 days after the first landing, Dr. Neri led the Veltar delegation through the streets of Seoul. Prime cultivator Velkan walked beside her, his tall form drawing stares from curious humans. Behind them came Engineer Kethmar and Cultural Analyst Ethevia, along with Captain Juan and a security team. "Your species moves with great urgency," Velkan observed, watching the busy sidewalks and flying cars above. "We have a lot to do," Dr. Nari replied. 12 billion people don't feed and house themselves." They stopped at a crosswalk where dozens of humans waited for the light to change. A small girl, maybe 6 years old, was playing with a toy that floated in circles around her hands. Dr. Nari noticed Ethvia staring at the child. "That device requires significant mental coordination," the cultural analyst said. "She's been playing with toys like that since she was 3, the girl's mother said proudly in English. Dr. Nari translated. 3 years of age? Kethmar asked. "Our young require 15 years of training to operate such devices safely." The little girl looked up at the tall alien and smiled. She made her toy dance in complex patterns, then handed it to Kethmar. When he tried to make it work, the toy simply fell to the ground. "It takes practice," the girl said through Dr. Nari's translation. They continued walking until they reached their destination, the Museum of First Contact. Dr. Nari had designed this building herself, and it held every piece of Veltar technology ever found on Earth. "This building contains 30,000 years of your history on our world," Dr. Nari explained as they entered. The first room was filled with the oldest artifacts: stone tools that had been touched by Veltar technology, cave paintings that showed alien visitors, fragments of metal that still glowed with ancient energy. "These were found in Africa," Dr. Nari said, pointing to a display case. "We think this is where you first changed our ancestors." Velkan studied the artifacts carefully. "Yes, these are from the initial modification process, but they should have degraded completely by now. We learned to maintain them," Dr. Nari said. "And more importantly, we learned from them." The next room showed how humans had slowly figured out Veltar technology. Simple devices that early humans had built by copying alien designs. Tools that helped them hunt better, grow more food, and heal their sick. "Your ancestors were resourceful," Ethevia admitted. Our ancestors were desperate, Dr. Nari corrected. You left them on a world full of dangerous animals and changing climate. They had to be resourceful to survive. The museum's central hall was dominated by a massive holographic display. It showed the history of human development over 30,000 years, with each major breakthrough marked in glowing text. Here, Dr. Nari said, pointing to a spot on the timeline. 28,000 years ago, humans learned to use fire more efficiently by studying your heat generation artifacts. Here, 15,000 years ago, we developed agriculture by copying your biological modification tools. Here, 5,000 years ago, we built our first cities using principles learned from your construction devices. Velkan watched the display in silence. The timeline showed humans taking every piece of abandoned Veltar technology and building upon it, creating new inventions that led to new discoveries that led to new inventions. You used our gifts as starting points, he said finally. Everything is a starting point, Captain Juan said. That's how humans think. We take what we have and make it better. The final room in the museum was dedicated to modern human technology. Here were the latest developments, faster-than-light drives, artificial gravity generators, fusion reactors, and medical scanners that could heal almost any injury. All of this is based on Veltar principles, Dr. Nari explained, but none of it works exactly like your original designs. Kethmar was studying a fusion reactor display. This design should not be stable. The containment field configuration violates the fundamental laws of plasma dynamics. It did, said Tejo, joining them from another part of the museum, until we figured out how to make the containment field rotate in 6 dimensions instead of 3. 6-dimensional rotation is theoretically impossible. That's what we thought too, Tejo said cheerfully. Then we did it anyway. Ethvia was looking at a different display, one that showed human art and music. These cultural expressions are very complex, she said. Most cultivation subjects develop only basic creative abilities. Maybe that's because you never gave them reason to create, Dr. Nari suggested. Humans create when they're happy, when they're sad, when they're afraid, when they're hopeful. We create because we're alive. She led them to a wall covered with paintings, sculptures, and musical instruments. One painting showed the first alien landing 30,000 years ago, but it was painted in bright, hopeful colors instead of dark, fearful ones. Your ancestors saw our arrival as a positive event, Velkan observed. They saw it as the beginning of something wonderful, Dr. Nari said. And they were right. You gave us the tools to become more than we could have been alone. But you were supposed to remain grateful and dependent, Ethvia said. All cultivation subjects do. Why? Captain Juan asked. Why would you want to keep any species weak and dependent? The 3 aliens looked at each other. It was Velkan who finally answered. Because strong, independent species do not serve the Empire willingly. Then maybe, Dr. Nari said quietly, the Empire is the problem. They left the museum and walked to the Sol spaceport. Here, human ships came and went constantly, carrying people and goods between Earth and the colonies. The aliens watched a massive cargo vessel take off from Mars, its engines glowing with improved Veltar technology. How many of your people live off-world? Kethmar asked. About 200 million, Captain Juan answered. We're planning new colonies in 12 more star systems. In our experience, cultivation subjects prefer to remain on their birth world. In our experience, Tejo said, humans prefer to see what's over the next hill. A priority alert chimed on Captain Juan's communicator. He listened for a moment, then looked up with a concerned expression. We need to return to the command center, he said. There's been a development. Back at the Unified Defense Command, the main screen showed a view of space near Jupiter. Dozens of new ships had appeared there, all clearly Veltar in design. These vessels were larger and more heavily armed than the first ship that had arrived at Earth. 12 battle cruisers, reported Commander Jiho. They appeared an hour ago and are holding position. Velkan studied the display. Those are ships from the 3rd Imperial Fleet. They were not part of the planned inspection mission. Why are they here? Dr. Nari asked. I believe, Velkan said slowly, they were summoned when our initial reports reached the Empire. The EI's High Command was concerned by what we found here. Concerned about what? About a cultivation subject species that has become more advanced than its cultivators. On the screen, the alien fleet began moving. They were not approaching Earth directly, but they were definitely getting closer. "What do they want?" Captain Juan asked. Velcon's skin shifted to a darker blue. "They want to correct what they see as a failed cultivation experiment." "Correct how?" "By reducing your species back to the appropriate development level." The room went silent. Dr. Nari felt cold despite the warm air. "You mean they want to destroy our civilization?" she said. "Not destroy," Velcon corrected. "Reset. Return you to a more manageable state of development." Captain Juan was already moving toward the communication station. "Get me Admiral Suho, and send alerts to all our colony worlds. We may have a fight coming." "Captain," Velcon said, "you cannot fight the Imperial fleet. Their ships are far more powerful than anything your species possesses." "Maybe," Juan said, "but we won't know until we try." Dr. Nari looked out the window at the city below. Millions of people were going about their daily lives, not knowing that aliens were deciding whether humanity deserved to keep its freedom. "There has to be another way," she said. "There is," Velcon replied. "Submit to Imperial authority. Accept reduction to an appropriate cultivation level. Your species will survive, just simpler." "That's not survival," Taiho said firmly. "That's giving up everything that makes us human." On the screen, the alien fleet continued its approach. In a few hours, they would be close enough to act on their intentions. Humanity was about to face its greatest test. Admiral Suho stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Dauntless, watching the alien fleet approach Jupiter's orbit. 12 massive Veltar battlecruisers moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the same color-shifting metal as the first ship that had landed in Seoul. "Distance?" he asked his navigation officer. 400 million kilometers and closing, sir. At their current speed, they'll reach Earth orbit in 18 hours. Suho nodded grimly. Around him, the bridge crew worked with calm efficiency despite the danger they faced. These were good people who had trained their entire lives for this moment, hoping it would never come. "Status of our fleet?" 87 ships ready for combat, reported Commander Yuna from the tactical station. "All Dreadnought-class and Cruiser-class vessels are in position. Fighter squadrons are standing by." Through the view screen, Suho could see the other human ships spreading out in defensive formation. They were smaller than the alien vessels, but moved with precision and grace. Each ship represented decades of human engineering, built using improved Veltar technology. Back on Earth, Captain Juan watched the approaching confrontation from the command center. Prime Cultivator Velcon stood. Beside him, his alien features showing what Dr. Nari had learned to recognize as distress. "Your ships cannot win this battle," Velcon said quietly. "Imperial battlecruisers have defeated entire star systems." "Maybe," Juan replied, "but our ships aren't like the ones they've fought before." Dr. Nari was working at a computer station nearby, analyzing the alien vessels with sensors that had been built using Veltar principles but improved by human ingenuity. "Their ships are bigger than ours," she called out. "But look at this energy signature. Their power systems are running at only 60% efficiency." Taiho looked over her shoulder at the data. 60%? Our ships run at 95% efficiency. How are they wasting so much energy? "They're using the original Veltar designs," Dr. Nari realized. "They never improved them." On the Dauntless, Admiral Suho received a communication from the alien fleet. The message appeared on his screen in formal Veltar script, which his ship's computer immediately translated. "Imperial fleet to Earth vessels. You are interfering with a lawful cultivation correction operation. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Suho looked around his bridge. Every face showed determination. "Send a reply," he said. "Tell them that Earth does not recognize their authority over our space. If they want to hurt our people, they'll have to go through us first." The reply came quickly. "You have chosen destruction. The Empire will remember your defiance as an example to other subjects." "All ships," Suho broadcast to the human fleet. "Weapons free. Protect Earth at all costs." The space battle began with light. The Veltar ships fired massive energy beams that lit up the darkness between the worlds. The human ships scattered like startled birds, using their superior speed to avoid the attacks. Captain Yuna piloted her fighter craft through the chaos, leading a squadron of 12 smaller vessels. The Veltar had never seen ships this small and fast. Her fighters darted between the huge alien cruisers, striking at their weapon systems and shield generators. "Targeting their primary shield array," she reported over the communication system. "These shields are strong, but slow to adapt." Her fighters attacked in coordinated patterns, hitting the same target from multiple angles. The Veltar shields, designed to stop massive attacks, struggled to deal with many small, precise strikes. On the Dauntless, Taiho worked with the engineering team to monitor the battle. He had spent years studying Veltar technology and knew its weaknesses. "Admiral," he called out, "their ships are having trouble tracking our movements. Their targeting computers are too slow." "How slow?" "About 3 seconds behind our actual position. If we keep moving in unpredictable patterns, they'll miss most of their shots." Suho smiled grimly. "All ships, evasive pattern Delta. Stay mobile." The human fleet began moving in complex, seemingly random patterns. The massive Veltar energy beams kept missing their targets, striking empty space where human ships had been moments before. Dr. Daeun, aboard the science vessel Discovery, was analyzing the alien weapons as they fired. Her ship carried the most advanced sensors in the human fleet, all based on improved Veltar technology. "Their energy weapons are powerful but inefficient," she reported. "Each shot drains 5% of their total power reserves." 5%? Admiral Suho asked. "How many shots can they fire?" "At their current rate, maybe 20 before they need to recharge their power systems." Engineer Kethmar, monitoring the battle from Earth, watched in growing amazement as the human ships avoided attack after attack. "This is impossible," he said to Dr. Nari. "No fleet should be able to evade Imperial firepower so effectively." "Our ships are smaller and faster than anything you've ever fought," Dr. Nari explained. "We learned from studying your technology that bigger isn't always better." On the screen, they watched as human fighters swarmed around one of the alien cruisers like insects around a giant. The Veltar ship tried to swat them away, but its weapons were too large and slow to hit such small, quick targets. "Hull breach on Imperial Cruiser 7, reported one of the human ships. "Their armor is strong, but not designed for precision attacks." Admiral Suho saw an opportunity. "All Dreadnought-class ships, focus fire on Cruiser 7. Let's see how tough they really are." 4 human dreadnoughts turned their weapons on the damaged alien ship. These were humanity's most powerful vessels, each one carrying weapons that had been developed from Veltar designs, but built to human specifications. The concentrated firepower overwhelmed the alien ship's defenses. Its shields collapsed, and its hull began to show damage. For the first time in Imperial history, a Veltar battlecruiser was losing a fight. "Impossible," Velkan whispered, watching from Earth. "Imperial ships do not lose battles to primitive civilizations." "We're not primitive," Captain Huan said firmly. "We're your students, and we learned your lessons better than you did." The damaged alien cruiser tried to retreat, but human ships surrounded it. They didn't destroy it completely, but they made it clear that they could if they wanted to. The rest of the alien fleet stopped firing. They had expected an easy victory against a primitive species. Instead, they were being outfought by ships they had considered inferior. "Imperial fleet-to-Earth vessels," came a new message. "Cease fire. We wish to discuss terms." Admiral Suho looked around his bridge. His ships had taken some damage, but nothing serious. More importantly, they had proven that human technology could compete with the best the Veltar Empire had to offer. "All ships hold position," he ordered. "Let's hear what they have to say." On Earth, Prime Cultivator Velkan was staring at the battle display in shock. Everything he believed about Veltar's superiority had just been challenged. "Your ships defeated Imperial vessels," he said quietly. "We defended ourselves," Dr. Nari corrected. "We don't want to fight anyone, but we won't let anyone destroy what we've built." Taiho was analyzing the battle data on his computer. "Their ships are definitely more powerful than ours individually," he said. "But they're designed for fighting other large ships. They can't adapt to our tactics." "More importantly," Captain Huan added, "they haven't improved their designs in 30,000 years. We've been improving ours constantly." The communication system chimed with an incoming message from the alien fleet commander. "I am Admiral Zethkor of the 3rd Imperial Fleet. the message said. I request immediate discussion with your leaders. This situation is unprecedented. Juan looked at Dr. Nari and Taiho, then at Velkan. Tell Admiral Zethkor that we're willing to talk, he said. But the talking happens here, on Earth, as equals. As the alien admiral's ship began moving toward Earth, Dr. Nari realized that everything was about to change. Humanity had just proven that they could defend themselves against the Veltar Empire. The question now was what would happen next. Admiral Zethkor's ship landed in Seoul 3 hours after the battle ended. The Veltar admiral was injured from the fighting, his left arm damaged by debris when human fighters had breached his flagship's defenses. Dr. Nari met him at the landing site with a team of human medical specialists. Your medical assistance is not required, Zethkor said stiffly as he limped down from his ship. Like all Veltar, he was tall and pale blue, but his skin showed darker patches where he had been hurt. Actually, it might be, said Dr. Hyun, the lead human doctor. She had spent years studying Veltar biology from the genetic samples they had found in ancient artifacts. Your species heals differently than ours, but we've learned some things that might help. Zethkor looked suspicious, but the pain in his arm was clearly getting worse. Very well, but I require standard Veltar medical procedures only. Dr. Hyun led him to Seoul General Hospital, the most advanced medical facility on Earth. As they walked through the corridors, Zethkor stared at the equipment around him. This technology, he said slowly, it is based on our designs, but improved, Dr. Hyun finished. We've learned to heal injuries that Veltar medicine considers untreatable. In the treatment room, Dr. Hyun used a scanner that looked similar to Veltar medical devices but worked much faster and more accurately. The readings appeared on a holographic display that showed Zethkor's arm in perfect detail. The damage is to your bioelectric circulation system, Dr. Hyun explained. Standard Veltar treatment would require 6 months of regeneration therapy. Yes, that is correct. We can fix it in about 20 minutes. Zethkor's black eyes widened. That is impossible. We've learned to stimulate cellular regeneration more efficiently, Dr. Hyun said, preparing a device that glowed with soft blue light. This might feel strange. The treatment worked exactly as Dr. Hyun had promised. Within 20 minutes, Zethkor's arm was fully healed. He moved it carefully, testing the restored function. How? He asked. We studied every piece of Veltar biotechnology we could find, Dr. Hyun explained. Then we figured out how to make it work better. Your people designed good healing systems, but they were slow and required too much energy. Prime cultivator Velkan, who had been watching the treatment, spoke quietly. We have not improved our medical technology in thousands of years. Why not? Dr. Hyun asked. Because it was already perfect, Zethkor said, but his voice lacked conviction. Nothing is perfect, Dr. Hyun replied. Everything can be made better if you're willing to try. They moved to a conference room where Captain Juan and the other human leaders were waiting. Zethkor sat carefully, still adjusting to his newly healed arm. I came here to oversee the reduction of your civilization, he said bluntly. I expected to find primitive beings using crude tools. Instead, I find a species that has surpassed its cultivators in nearly every way. We had good teachers, Doctor, Nari said diplomatically. The technology you left behind gave us an excellent foundation to build on. But you were supposed to remain grateful and dependent, Zethkor said. That is how cultivation works. That is how it has always worked. Taiho leaned forward. Has it worked, though? Are your cultivated species happy? Are they productive? Do they create new things? Zethkor paused. They are stable. They serve the Empire faithfully. That's not what I asked. Engineer Kethmar, who had been silent during the medical treatment, finally spoke. Our cultivation worlds are stagnant, he admitted. The species we oversee produce what they are told to produce. They do not innovate. They do not grow. Because you don't let them, Captain Juan said. You keep them weak so they'll be easy to control. We keep them safe, Zethkor protested. Without Imperial guidance, they would destroy themselves. Like, we did? Dr. Nari asked pointedly. They spent the next several hours touring different parts of human civilization. Zethkor saw fusion power plants that provided clean energy to entire cities. He visited schools where human children learned science and art together. He watched factories where humans and robots worked side by side to build everything from spaceships to musical instruments. At the Seoul Institute of Technology, Taiho showed the aliens humanity's latest research projects. They were working on medical devices that could heal any injury, energy systems that could power entire planets, and transportation methods that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. All of this is based on principles we learned from your technology, Taiho explained. But we've taken those principles in directions you never imagined. Why? Zethkor asked. Why not simply use what you were given? Because we're curious, said Dr. Yoon, one of the research scientists. When we see something that works, we immediately start wondering how to make it work better. And when something doesn't work perfectly, added another researcher, we try to figure out why and fix it. Kethmar was studying a new type of computer that used quantum effects to process information. This design should be unstable, he said. The quantum fields should interfere with each other. They did, until we learned to make them cooperate, instead of compete, Dr. Yoon explained. It took us 15 years to figure out how. 15 years of trying to solve one problem. It was an interesting problem. That evening, they gathered in a restaurant where humans and aliens shared a meal together. Zethkor tried human food for the first time and found that he enjoyed the complex flavors. Your species creates for pleasure, he observed, tasting a carefully prepared dish. We create because we're alive, Dr. Nari said. Humans need to make things, to improve things, to explore and discover. It's part of who we are. Most cultivated species lose that drive, Velkan said quietly. We provide for all their needs, so they stop trying to provide for themselves. Maybe, Captain Huan suggested. The problem isn't with the cultivated species. Maybe the problem is with the cultivation system. Zethkor set down his fork and looked around the table. You are suggesting that the Empire's fundamental approach to governing other species is wrong. I'm suggesting that treating intelligent beings like children doesn't help them grow up, Huan replied. The next morning, Zethkor received a priority message from the Veltar High Command. He read it with growing concern, then looked up at the humans who had gathered to see him off. The High Command has reviewed our reports from Earth, he said. They are displeased with the situation here. What do they want? Dr. Nari asked. They want to understand how a cultivation subject species became more advanced than its cultivators. They are sending investigation teams to all of our cultivation worlds to study them, to determine if the cultivation process itself is flawed. Captain Huan smiled. And what do you think they'll find? Zethkor looked back at the city behind him, full of humans working and creating and improving their world every day. I think, he said slowly, they will find that we have been doing this wrong for a very long time. As his ship prepared to leave Earth, Zethkor made a decision that would change everything. He activated his ship's communication system and sent a message, not to the High Command, but to every Veltar cultivation world in the Empire. The message was simple. The subjects on Earth have exceeded their cultivators in technology, medicine, and innovation. They achieved this not by rejecting our gifts, but by building upon them. Perhaps it is time to consider whether cultivation subjects should be partners rather than servants. Within hours, that message would reach dozens of worlds where cultivated species had been waiting for centuries to be allowed to grow and explore and create. The Veltar Empire was about to discover what happened when you stopped holding people back and started letting them reach for the stars. 6 months after Admiral Zethkor's message spread across the Veltar Empire, everything had changed. Captain Huan stood in the newly built Unity Station, orbiting Earth at the halfway point between the planet and the moon. Through the massive observation windows, he could see ships from dozens of different species arriving and departing. The station was a joint project between humans and Veltar, but the design was something entirely new. It combined the best of both civilizations, Veltar engineering principles with human innovation and creativity. The result was a structure that was both beautiful and functional, a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Dr. Nari walked up, beside him, carrying a datapad filled with reports from across the galaxy. How many worlds have declared independence from the Empire? Huan asked. 47 so far, Dr. Nari replied. and more are joining every day. The Zephyrians just announced they're building their first interstellar ship. The Corvani have developed new farming techniques that could feed twice their population. And the Veltar High Command? Still trying to figure out how to respond. Half of them want to crush all the rebellious worlds. The other half are starting to realize that their old system was failing anyway. Through the window, they watched as a Veltar transport ship docked with the station. This vessel was different from the ones that had first arrived at Earth. It had been modified with human-designed improvements that made it faster and more efficient. Prime Cultivator Velkon emerged from the ship, but he no longer held that title. The Veltar government had collapsed 3 months ago when too many worlds refused to follow imperial orders. Now he was simply Velkon, representing a group of Veltar who wanted to build something better than the Empire had been. The latest. Reports from the homeworld, he said, handing Dr. Nari a crystal data storage device. The situation continues to deteriorate. The Veltar homeworld was facing a crisis. For thousands of years, they had relied on their cultivated species to provide food, resources, and labor. With most of those species now governing themselves, the Veltar were discovering that they had forgotten how to take care of their own needs. How bad is it? Captain Juan asked. Food shortages in 12 major cities, Velkon replied. Their manufacturing systems are breaking down because they never learned to maintain the technology themselves. They always had cultivation subjects do that work. Taiho joined them, having just finished a meeting with engineers from 6 different species. He was leading a project to design new spacecraft that could be built and operated by any of the former cultivation worlds. The Veltar Council is requesting another meeting, he said. They want to discuss terms for a formal agreement. What kind of terms? Dr. Nari asked. They're willing to recognize the independence of all cultivation worlds, Taiho explained. In exchange, they want help rebuilding their civilization and joining whatever comes next. Captain Juan smiled. This was what he had been hoping for since the first Veltar ship had arrived at Earth. Tell them we'll meet them here, on the station, as equals. The meeting took place in Unity Station's main conference room, a circular chamber with representatives from 23 different species. The Veltar delegation was led by former High Cultivator Eshlin, an elderly Veltar who had spent her life overseeing the Empire's cultivation programs. We come seeking partnership, Eshlin said formally. The Veltar acknowledged that our cultivation system was flawed and caused suffering to many species, including our own. Dr. Nari stood to respond. Over the past months, she had become one of the main voices for the growing alliance of free worlds. We're willing to work with you, she said, but only if you're truly committed to treating all species as equals. We understand. What do you propose? Captain Juan activated a holographic display that showed a map of the local galaxy. Dozens of star systems were marked in different colors. We call it the Terran Compact, he said, a voluntary alliance of free worlds. Each species governs itself, but we share technology, resources, and knowledge. And protection, added Admiral Suho, who had been promoted to head the new multi-species defense force. Some parts of the galaxy are still dangerous. Together, we can keep each other safe. What? About the Veltar? Eshelin asked. What role would we play in this alliance? The same role as everyone else, Dr. Nari said. You contribute what you can and receive what you need. Your people have thousands of years of experience managing complex civilizations. That knowledge would be valuable to younger species. Engineer Kethmar, who had spent months working with human scientists, spoke up. Many Veltar fear that we will be punished for the mistakes of the Empire. We're not interested in punishment, Taiho said. We're interested in building something better. Over the following weeks, the details of the Terran Compact were worked out. Each member species would maintain complete independence over their internal affairs. Disputes between worlds would be resolved through negotiation and mediation. Technology and scientific discoveries would be shared freely. Most importantly, no species would be forced to serve any other. The old imperial hierarchy was abolished completely. The signing ceremony took place on Earth, in the same plaza where the first Veltar ship had landed. Representatives from 58 worlds gathered to formally establish the new alliance. Dr. Nari stood at the podium, looking out at beings from dozens of different species. Humans stood next to Veltar, who stood next to Zephyrians, who stood next to Corvani, who stood next to species that had just learned each other's names. 30,000 years ago, she began, the Veltar came to Earth and changed our ancestors. They thought they were creating servants. Instead, they created something they never expected, a species that would one day help free the galaxy. Today, we're not just signing an agreement between governments. We're making a promise to each other, a promise that every intelligent being has the right to grow, to explore, to create, and to reach for the stars. Together, we will build a galaxy where no one is held back by artificial limitations, where every species can achieve its full potential, where cooperation replaces domination, and where the only cultivation that matters is the cultivation of friendship, knowledge, and hope. The agreement was signed by all 58 worlds. The Veltar Empire was officially dissolved, replaced by the Terran Compact. As the ceremony ended, Captain Juan found himself standing with Velcon near the memorial that had been erected for the first contact. The memorial showed both species working together, building something greater than either could achieve alone. "Do you think this will work?" Velcon asked. "Can so many different species really cooperate as equals?" "I don't know," Juan admitted. "But it has to work better than what you had before." The Empire lasted for 50,000 years. The Empire stagnated for 50,000 years, Juan corrected. "Look what we've all accomplished in just 6 months of freedom." Around them, beings from across the galaxy were talking, laughing, and planning new projects together. A group of Veltar and human children were playing with toys that floated in complex patterns, each species teaching the other new tricks. Dr. Nari joined them, carrying her young daughter, Minji. The little girl had become something of a celebrity, known throughout the galaxy as the child who had casually demonstrated advanced technology to beings who had thought they were the teachers. "What's next?" Dr. Nari asked. "Exploration," Taiho said, walking up with plans for a new type of ship. "There are whole sections of the galaxy that even the Veltar never reached. Imagine what we might find out there." "New species," Captain Juan said thoughtfully. "And this time, when we meet them, we'll meet them as friends, not as conquerors or servants." "Education," Dr. Nari added. "We have so much to learn from each other. The Veltar have philosophical traditions that go back millions of years. The Zephyrians have art forms that can affect people's emotions directly. The Corvani have mathematical concepts that might unlock new physics." Little Minji looked up at the adults around her. "Are we going to the stars?" she asked. "We're already among the stars," her mother replied. "Now we're going to make friends with them." As the sun set over Sol, ships from the compact worlds began departing for their home systems. They carried with them new technologies, new ideas, and new hope for the future. The Veltar had returned to Earth to reclaim their vessel and everything aboard. Instead, they had discovered that the greatest thing they had ever created was not a ship or a tool or a weapon. It was the idea that any species, given freedom and opportunity, could surpass its creators and reach heights no one had imagined possible. And in learning that lesson, the Veltar had not lost their empire. They had gained something far more valuable, a galaxy full of friends, partners, and fellow explorers, all working together to build a future that belonged to everyone. Age of cultivation was over. The age of cooperation had begun.